Hello everyone. Today we are going to be reviewing this MTH Premier Southern Pacific GS4 number 4449 here on Brendan's Trains. Now this is the third Scale Northern I've reviewed on this channel, and this was the second Scale Northern I ever got. The other two models I reviewed on my channel was the Lionel Redding T1 from 1989 and my MTH Premier Great Northern S2. Before I talk about this model, let's go into a little history of the GS4s. So the GS4s were a 484 type steam locomotive. Now, if you don't know what 484 means, it means for the wheel configuration on the engine. So this means we have 4 wheels up on the lead truck, 8 drive wheels in the middle, and 4 wheels underneath the cab for support. The GS stands for Golden State or General Service, and the 4 means this is the 4th batch of GS locomotives built for the Southern Pacific. Now, 4449 here is a member of the GS4 class of locomotives, and they numbered them 4430 to 4457, and they were built in 1941. And these pulled the passenger train known as the Daylight, and it ran from Sacramento to San Francisco. Now, in the 1950s, the GS4s would be bumped from the first class passenger service because the diesels were starting to take over. So the GS4s were later reassigned to secondary passenger trains and freight trains. They even lost their side skirts in orange and red paint. In 1957, all but one GS4 was scrapped, and the one that survived was number 4449, which is the one that we have here. And it was donated to Oaks Park in Portland, Oregon, later restored in 1976 for the American Freedom Train, and she's been running on excursion service ever since. Now, this history was not in depth because everyone knows the 4449, but if you don't know the engine, you can just Google GS4 number 4449, and it'll give you a ton of information on the GS4s. Now that you know a little bit of history on the GS4, let's talk about this model. MTH's model of the GS4 came out in their MTH 1998 Volume 2 catalog, and they only made number 4449. This was the very first time anyone made a scale model of the real engine. Here are some stats and facts on this model. The length of the engine and tender coupled together is over 29 inches, and the weight is over 12 pounds, so this thing weighs a ton. And the minimum required curve for this engine is 054. Now, the sounds that you get from this locomotive is not what you get with Protosound 2 or Protosound 3. This locomotive has Protosound 1, and this means you have a chuff, steam background sounds, a whistle, a bell, and PFA announcements. Now, to run this locomotive, you can only run it with the transformer, so if you want to run it with the DCS, you cannot do it, but if you go to conventional mode on the DCS, you can run it that way. This engine is packed with great detail, so let's go ahead and take a closer look. Here's a look on the front of the locomotive. Now, since this is a streamlined locomotive, you're not going to get a lot of detail, or should I say separately applied detail. On the front, we have a very nice grille right here. Then we have the coupler cut lever that moves up and down. Really nice. Now, there's a chain and pin that goes into a dummy scale coupler, and if you want to double head the engine, you can swap out that coupler, but when I got mine, it did not come with the coupler. Right above the coupler cut lever, we have the walkway. We have some safety tread on top. Then we have the 4449 number plate right here in front of the radiator. Here's a look on front of the boiler. We have some separately applied marker lights on either side. We have a metal horn right here. We have the Mars light and the headlight right here with light and number boards on either side. a little metal grab iron right here, and of course the front of the boiler swings open like that. Pretty cool. Here is a look on sides of the engine. We have some nice rivet detailing right here. We have the beginning of the two separately applied metal handrails that go all the way back to the cab. We have a little grab iron right here. Then we have some legible builder's plates right here. Then below the builder's plates we have the Daylight logo right there. Here's a look on the sides of the engine. We have the continuation of the metal handrail. We have some number boards right here that light up. Then we have a separately applied metal reversing rod right here. Then we have some nice molded in detailing right here. And then on the skirting we have some nice rivet detailing. Here's underneath the running board we have a very nicely detailed pilot truck right here. Then above it we have a very nicely detailed full cylinder with some polished cylinder caps. Then we have the drive wheels and the drive rods, and all this stuff looks amazing when the engine is in motion. You'll see that in just a few minutes. Now, what I really like about these wheels is that they look really cool. This reminds me a lot of the Boxpak style driving wheels that are like on the New York Central Mohawks. Towards the rear of the engine, we have the trailing trucks right here. Then above it, we have the firebox with some rivet detailing. Then we have a separately applied detail piece right here. I don't know what that is. Then we have a separately applied metal ladder that goes all the way up to the cab doors. We have some separately applied grab irons on either side. We have a crisp 4449 and the GS4 classification and some signage right here. We have some clear plastic inserts in these windows. Now inside the cab there are two hand-painted crew figures. There's a modestly detailed backhead, but that's okay because you're never going to see the cab interior because the cab is fully enclosed. And there's also an interior light in the cab. We have a smokestack right here, and this thing does have a fan-driven smoke unit. And as always, to load smoke fluid into the smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Now, right next to the smokestack is the whistle. Now, on these GSs, they would either have the whistle near the smokestack or back towards the cab. Right behind the smokestack and the whistle, we have a little water cap right here, I'm assuming. I don't know why they had these caps on them. Then we have a molded-in steam dome right here. Right behind the steam dome, we have some brass pop-off valves, and we have 3 dynamo generators right here. On top of the cab, there's a little bit of rivet detailing. Now, there's 2 vents, but they do not open. They're just molded in. Okay, that takes care of the engine. Now let's go ahead and check out the tender. Here's a look on sides of the tender. We have some legible signage right here of the oil capacity and the water capacity this thing can hold. Then we have a crisp Southern Pacific on each side of the tender, some nice rivet detailing, and we have the Daylight paint scheme, which I really like on these engines. Here's a look on top of the tender. We have a little oil hatch right here that does not open. Then we have some separately applied grab irons on our side of the oil bunker. Then behind the oil bunker, we have a water pump right here. Some separately applied metal grab irons on the other side of the tender. Then we have 4 water hatches, but they do not open. They're just molded in. On the back of the tender, we have a crisp 4449 right there, as well as some lining. We also have a backup light right there. Some nice rivet detailing. We have metal steps or ladders on either side. We have separately applied metal grab irons on our side. And then in the middle, we have an electrocoupler. Alright, the last thing we're going to do before we start this engine up is to mention my favorite feature on this engine. My favorite feature of the GS4 is actually the paint scheme. I really like how this thing looks, and this engine looks unlike anything else in my collection in terms of the paint scheme. And when you have a collection as large as mine, it's always good to add a little bit of color to your collection. So yeah, my favorite feature of this engine is the paint scheme. Alright, let's go ahead and start this engine up. Alright, first up, let's check out the whistle. Here's the bell. Alright, let's go ahead and give it a run.
Track number 1, train number 5, the Argonaut.
Now the cars behind this train are the original coaches that was cataloged with the engine, a catalog after they produced this thing.
Baggage to the left. Now departing for Los Angeles and all points west on track number 1, train number 5, the Argonaut. Welcome aboard. Aboard!
Okay, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a great locomotive. I'm happy to own it, and it's a heck of a lot of fun to run. The item number for this locomotive is 20-3029-1. Now, if you're interested in purchasing one of these, I've seen them on eBay from $500 to $600. If you want a GS4 that will last you a lifetime, this is a good option. But of course, there's newer versions of the GS4 that MTH and Lionel has produced. Anyways, that's it for now. This is Brendan's Trains, signing off.
Connected.